Welcome everyone, this is Mark from WhiskyWhistle bringing you Whiskey Review 26. Today we're going to be looking at the famous Grouse. This is a product from the Edrington Group, formerly Highland Distillers, and this brand, the famous Grouse, was originally owned by Matthew Glogan's son, who began making the famous Grouse sometime after 1896. Like many blended Scotch whiskies, the famous Grouse, well, the Matthew Glogan's son company began as merchants, and like many other of these merchants, they soon began making blended Scotch whiskey. So now, before I continue, again, I must always thank you so much for all of your interest in WhiskyWhistle and the great comments and for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you enjoy this, and if so, please subscribe. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I'm going to get started with the pouring, and I'm going to open that box. Whoops, a little tight on my interesting plate that I've got here. That was a gift from a friend of mine named John and his wife Mel for a wedding gift. Oh, okay, so there's the box. And boy, sometimes you need one more set of hands. I'll set that there for now. Pretty famous brand. It's the famous Grouse. This is Scotland's #1 selling Scotch whiskey, and it's number 2, I believe, in the UK. And I'll pour a little bit, and then I'll read a little bit of the bottle and the box. Here we are. I first tried this in my parents' house. That was a rather healthy pour, my goodness. Probably a few years ago. One of their very, very good friends really likes the famous Grouse. I'm going to move that box out of the way. And so they always stock the famous Grouse for when she comes over. And her name is Glenda. Glenda, if you're watching, well, this is for you. And of course, Mom and Dad, thanks so much for letting me raid your whiskey cabin all those years. Cabinet, not cabin. Wouldn't that be nice? A whiskey cabin. Okay, so let's have a look at well, the nose and the color and the taste of that. First of all, fairly standard amber. Not too much color in there. There probably is some, but not so heavily so. You can see that nicely on the back wall there, since it's a lighter color. So a little bit less than the standard amber shade, which is nice. And on the nose, I get some Macintosh apples. Yes, I do. Salted caramel, some soft peat, some raisins as well. And the peat is kind of like it's an undercurrent. It's not really the big waves of smell that you're getting from that one, that I'm getting from it. It smells really nice. It's definitely a good quality basic bottle of whiskey, basic brand. Okay. Cheers everyone. Cheers Glenda. Hope you're having a glass of this with me now. All right. It begins off really soft and sweet. It develops into some light brown sugar notes with raisins, kind of like if you've ever had oatmeal with brown sugar and raisins. There's some soft smoke in there, and then it develops sour in your mouth, and finally some bitter orange. So a good range of the flavors there, and there's a slight astringency after you keep it in your mouth for a little while. Most people would probably just swallow that quickly, but I don't need to pour another glass. What was I thinking? You really should just let it sit in your mouth for just a little while. Take a small sip. I'm going to take another little sip now. Somewhere around 2 or 3 seconds, you get a little bit of astringency as well. So strong sweetness at the foreground, getting sour, a little bitter, and finally some astringency at the end. The finish, caramel is left over. It's not too dry, and you still have a bit of apple there. And there's a slight saccharine note left over in the finish too. Now the soft sweetness that I'm getting from this may be from the corn whiskey that goes into the famous Grouse. This is a blended Scotch whiskey, so it's a mixture of single malts, a variety of single malts from different distilleries, and then corn whiskey, probably from just one distiller. I'm not sure who the Edrington Group uses for their corn whiskey. I should have looked into that. And that would be a higher proof, and then they would mix it with the single malts, which are a lower proof, lower alcohol by volume, and then they, well, according to what I'm getting from the website and also from Wikipedia, after they blended the whiskey, they further mature it for up to an extra 6 months in oak casks. Of course, it has to be oak casks. So there's a little bit of final marrying that's going on there. Now I'm going to add a little bit of water, not very much. That is a healthy pour, so I'll put in about a little more than half a teaspoon. You don't need to. It's 40% ABV, so it's definitely okay to drink just as it is. So why would you want to put a little bit of water? You just get some different scents and different flavors when adding a little bit of water. Let that roll around a little bit. And now, a little bit less peat, more salted caramel, and something kind of like a caramel apple or caramel apple, however you pronounce the word caramel. So like a candy apple, but the brown one with caramel on it. Okay, and how about the palate? Oh, by the way, if you hear a bit of a banging noise, I'm sorry, my elevator is getting totally replaced, and they're busy working on that now. Let's see about the taste now. Cheers, everybody. Still soft and sweet. The smoke note is just about gone. Less bitter and less astringency. So a little more on the sweeter note of the range of things, the range of tastes. And oddly enough, in the finish, you get a little bit more apple, caramel. It's a little bit drier, slightly sour. So interesting. I like the nose better with water. I like the palate, the taste better without water. And the finish a little bit better with water too. So you can really mix that up a little bit. Now, as for a score, the WhiskyWhistle score for the famous Grouse is going to be 75 out of 100. And my notes here, I wrote that this is a decent basic bottle. It's very good for mixing. It's also good for drinking neat, or perhaps with ice if that's what you like. And, well, we'll talk about the other note here. My other note here is that it's great with a drop of Highland Park added. It adds peat and complexity, and I put here in quotation marks, fresh. Now, So I mentioned Matthew Gloag & Son, and that was 1896, now owned by the Edrington Group. And the timeline is 1970, one of the heirs of the Gloag family, I guess he passed away, and Highland Distillers picked up the famous Grouse brand in 1970, as well as they had Highland Park and the Macallan. 1999, Edrington bought the brand, and they took it private. So it went from being a publicly traded company, I guess, to privately owned. And interestingly enough, it's part owned by William Grant & Sons, and I'm not sure if that is still true up to this day, but I'd imagine they still have a little bit of a share investment in the company. So the famous Grouse, what is this? Again, it's a blended Scotch whiskey. A little bit of corn whiskey with a higher proof, as I mentioned, and then some single malt whiskeys which have a lower proof, all mixed together to create, I guess, a unique flavor that, well, the lovers of the brand continue to enjoy, and that's what they want. They like to have the same taste in their glass year after year after year. And the famous Grouse, just like other blended Scotch whiskies, provides this. Anyway, so why do I have all these bottles here? Well, Edrington is the company that owns all of these brands. Here we have the Macallan 12-year-old, which I reviewed in Whiskey Review number 6, and the Highland Park, which is from the Isle of Orkney, the very northern tip of Scotland. I believe it is the northernmost distillery. But anyway, so these two, as well as a third, which will be rolling up on the screen shortly, which is Glenturret. Glenturret single malt, which is a Highland single malt, is also included. There's the Macallan on the screen. And next should be Highland Park, I think. Oh, yeah, there's Glenturret right there. So those are 3 of the constituent single malts that go into the blend. There are many others. Anyway, now they've got a visitor center which is located at the Glenturret Distillery. That's why I've got that there. And we see here there's a tombstone of Towser, the cat, who apparently was the stillhouse cat in charge of catching all the mice. Apparently he had caught and killed nearly 2,900 mice until his death in maybe 1967. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to put a little bit of Highland Park into my glass there. I'm going to shuffle things around a little bit here. Now, if you like sweeter whiskeys, then what you could do is you could add some of the Macallan to your famous Grouse and get a unique experience. Anyway, so we'll add just a dash. Ooh, that was a healthy little dash. But in a big glass of the famous Grouse, so that should be okay. So, of course, we get more peat in the nose, and also more salted caramel too, which I quite like. And it really livens it up. The corn whiskey notes, that softness, seem to dissipate. What had I written there? Well, I just put peat and complexity. So let's try to taste that now. In my opinion, it really does quite nicely with a little bit of extra Highland Park added. And I would probably score that an 81 or 82 with a little bit of Highland Park added. Of course, that's just my palate. You can try that with the Macallan. If you have a bottle of Glenturret, you can try adding that. Possibly even some Glenrothes, which may be one of the malts included in the famous grouse. Okay? All right, so that is it for whiskey review number 26. My name is Mark, and well, you're watching Whiskey Whistle, and if you watch until now, why not subscribe? And that way you'll keep in touch with all of the latest whiskey whistlings. Okay? All right, so have yourself a great weekend, a great Whiskey Wednesday, although I think it's going to be over by the time I get this up. Have a nice weekend and a good run up towards Christmas. Take care now.